Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Maybe please be seated. Thank you for coming and paying attention for this interesting presentation. I hope so. It's all about digital building logbooks and alike. It's about data for buildings that we collect, that we store for many various purposes. There are various projects. Also last year on Sustainable Places, we had a workshop on these issues. Also a few other projects. So there's a lot going on, and we're very happy that at least here are 6 different projects that relate to digital building logbooks, data and tools for decarbonisation as a focus. So, what do we have today? Oh, yes, okay, this is me. I'm from Delft University of Technology, and I'm also the coordinator of Demo B-Log, which I will present just a little bit later. Why is this going down first? Okay. And here you have an overview of the various speakers. I'm not going to introduce you now. I think it's better that you introduce it when you have your presentation. So we have 1.5 hours, and I think we need the time to have 6 different presentations. So I also want to ask you to be a little bit brief. Some have quite a lot of slides, but it's about 10 minutes per individual presentation, so that we save some time at the end also to have some cross overviews, discussion, see the links, see the developments in all of these. So I start off with a few slides that were made by BPIE within our project, a kind of policy overview, policy brief, because what we do is all related to various European policies. And here is also a kind of timeline. Things get more detailed and more precise and different, our approach from different angles, like the circular economy plan, Renovation Wave, industrial strategy, and a specific study on DBLs and what it could bring. Then there was the introduction of the next phase of the EPBD, updated industrial strategy. Then a lot of things more on building products standards. Some other studies, and also in the EPBD 4, I think it's remarkable. There is now the statement that member states should facilitate the renovation passport. So there is a need to think like, what would it look like and what would it contain? So here's also a kind of overview on different policies and approaches from corporate level, building level, product level. I think most of the presentations here deal with the building level and then relates to the EPBD. We also try to make an inventory. What's your name again? Vladimir tries to make an inventory of how all our projects relate to the various aspects of the EPBD. And I saw the overview, it's not now included, but I think it's very useful to think about that, like we all take parts of the puzzle. And and in some years it's getting more close and complete, I would say. Here is also a kind of overview of the different technologies, the different types of data, and how you could call the different instruments. I think there's still a little bit, or a lot of confusion when you say renovation passport or renovation or building passport or digital building logbook. It's not immediately clear for everyone what we mean with it, but I think the picture gets more and more clear. And I think what I made a circle around is more what we do in our project, Demo B-Log, and I will say something about that later. But first, we go to the data of all of Europe in the Observe project. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here in this room as well. Yesterday we were talking about smart readiness indicator. Now today we will focus on a similar, let's say, topic. It's about data. My name is Dimitris Athanasiou. I am in ICP, the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policies. But I consider myself a policy officer as I used to work in the Ministry of Energy back in Greece, and then I also had some time in the European Commission in DG Energy, exactly on the EPBD, and I know from first hand how difficult it is to actually transpose the EPBD, implement it, and also develop some strategies. For all these strategies, you need information, you need data. That's why that was actually the concept behind Observe. So Observe is the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think it takes some time to read. So Observe is a project that aims really at data governance. So this is the idea. It's about how to actually manage to find the data and make them work. I will try to explain briefly in the following slides. We have a big consortium with other organizations that they are really working on the area and on the field. And we only started like 1 year ago. And it is only now that we are really into the development phase. So our objectives is to develop a national building stock observatory. So bear in mind that when we were drafting the proposal, the EPBD was not published. I mean, the EPBD recast. But okay, if you work in the area, you know the missing data gaps, you know what the problem is, and we also knew more or less from the public consultations or the impact assessment and evaluation of the EPBD, we knew a little bit what the problem is and what the Commission would like to do. We didn't have the details, but in any case, we knew exactly what we wanted to do. The idea was not exactly to mirror the European Building Stock Observatory with national building stock observatories, which was not a bad idea. Anyway, through the discussions, I will explain exactly what we mean by developing national building stock observatories. And the idea is to improve the data collection methods, the available existing different approaches for data collection, to streamline and see how we can actually ensure consistency. We want to, one of the triggers behind the concept was that, okay, there are many other projects dealing with data, many data sources in each and every member state, but also at European level. So how can we try to, let's say, discuss with all these projects, with all these people, how can we take the knowledge and how can we make it to something consistent that would actually work? Of course, the idea is to support the EU Building Stock Observatory. I remember from my time in the European Commission that they were struggling for data, so it's not easy to find it. We directly support 6 member states, but our aim is to replicate it to at least 6 more European countries. And of course, the whole objective is to increase the transparency and reliability, and if you want the use of data. Because, if you think about it, data is, at least in my mind, is that data is important for everything. It is only with correct, reliable, and transparent data and easy to access data that we can actually have build some information. Based on this information, we can then develop some strategies, like the long-term renovation strategies or the building renovation plans or whatever else. And based on that, you can develop policies. Based on that, you can make your social policies. Based on that, you can identify the worst performing buildings. Based on data information, you can actually see what how to have the maps So everything is about correct data. This is at least the way we see it. So very, very quickly, the overall phasing is that we start with policy data needs. So it's not that easy. Maybe you think that, okay, everything is there, but not. I will explain what I mean with that. So first of all, policy data, policy needs, first of all, for data. Then we try to understand what the missing gaps are, the sources we have, the available sources, the existing approaches, and then the missing gaps. Again, not as easy as it looks like, have it or not have it, it's not that easy. And then we try to develop a system, a process, if you want, where we want to, that I will explain about a consistent data set methodology. And then, of course, we want to test the methodology, and we want to communicate it, and finally come up with something that could maybe work at a pan-European level. So the idea is not to develop data platforms at the end. I mean, that was maybe the overall idea in the very beginning, but then we decided that maybe let's wait a little bit for the EPBD to be published and see. And we will not transfer the data to the EU BSO as it is now required by the EPBD, because this is also, something for the member states. The data belong to the member states in any case, and it will be the member states delivering the data. But we can facilitate the whole process if, of course, member states also would like to do so. So first of all, data needs. So I think you presented before an overall schema with all the different, requirements, or all the different, let's say, directives, studies, whatever. So this is our starting point, actually, to see what data we need. You mentioned the EPBD, and of course, EPBD is our holy grail. We start with Article 3 of National Building Renovation Plans. For us, it's like important. I know, as I said from first hand, how difficult it is to find the data that the current EPBD requires for Annex B, for Annex 2, for example. Then we have Article 16 about data exchange, Article 22 about databases and how to actually transfer the data to the EU Building Stock Observatory. We have also, and this is something that maybe we can complement in another, let's say, in another presentation. We also have the EED, the Renewable Energy Directive, and we shouldn't be forgetting the National Energy Climate Plans. So, for example, when we talk, when we refer to EED, it is Article 5 and 6 actually about the public buildings. Article 15A of the Renewables Directive, again, is directly linked with buildings with a new target. And we shouldn't forget National Energy Climate Plans. They have their own, let's say, template. So if you think about it, member states, one way or another, have a lot of work to do when it goes to data. They have to find a lot of information behind it. It's not easy. Even if you think that you have the data, finally you don't have it. And as I said, I was working exactly on that, both for the Ministry and the European Commission, and we were really struggling about it. Same for the EU Building Stock Observatory. So in Observe, the first thing is to find all the data requirements out of these, let's say, different requirements of the EPBD, the EED, NACPs, and Renewables Directive. Then we also want to have a look at the BSO. Some of them are the same, maybe some of them not. And on top of that, we also have the EC guidance framework with a lot of many more, let's say, guidances, more than 20 documents, the implementing act for the BSO, and some templates that the Commission thankfully and gratefully published about how to manage data, how to collect data. So this is useful, and we were smart enough in Observe to keep it flexible and say, okay, we suggest something like right now, but then we want to see how exactly all this will end up in the EPBD. So the first idea is to to create a template with all the necessary, let's say, data needs. So we already created a big, let's say, Excel file with different domains, different where we can play with the legislation, but also with the domains, and we try to also follow what the EPBD requires, but also what member states want. Okay, now we know the data needs. Speed up.
Yes.
Okay.
I see a lot of more slides.
Okay, I will speed up. Okay, we have the data needs. Do we have the data? It's not that easy. It's not just that even if we think that we can find, something from an EPBD, from EPC databases or from Eurostat or whatever, we can directly use it. Just because we have an indicator, it doesn't mean that we can directly use it. It's in the quality that is required. That's why we decided to go for a SWOT analysis, and by SWOT analysis, okay, so we want to do a SWOT analysis for each and every data source we find, for each and every indicator, and see, okay, is this the correct data source? Is this, let's say, good enough to use it in our final methodology? So we have a SWOT analysis and a scoring system where we, let's say, assess many different elements in terms of accessibility, format, availability, and so on. And the idea is finally to have a different, let's say, data set, Excel sheet, with all the different indicators, and the source, the availability, and a scoring system at the end where we can say, okay, these indicators, this data, we can directly use, this maybe we can improve, and so on. Once we have this, and this is already described, in these first two areas. So it's about, identifying the needs, the policy framework, and also other indicators. Then, as I said, we conduct a SWOT analysis, and the idea is to finally develop a data set with, where we want to have a minimal common data set with specific requirements for each and every, let's say, indicator, so that we can directly use it for the data collection processes. The data that the indicators that we have collected is huge, and we decided to start with the mandatory, let's say, data needs to cover Article 22 of the EPBD, which is about transferring the data to the UBSO. So we're going to start with this one, and then this is where that is what the first, let's say, phase of observe will be, and then we're going to test it. We're going to use it with member states and see if how it works, and then we're going to supplement it with more indicators, more databases about other articles and so on. So the idea is to have something consistent, something that we can, use with a standardized way, and also, okay, oops. And also, try to match and invite more, if you want, actors to contribute. So the National Building Stock Observatory, so this, let's say, data set will allow for more actors to be to contribute directly. Of course, we're gonna discuss it with national authorities. We're gonna have a first quality level control before, let's say, the transfer to the UBSO. So we're gonna do all that ready to be used by the ministries. We are already discussing with the ministries about it. We presented it already. We try to explain to them what we're gonna do and how we can actually help them, because it is true, and we have a lot of interviews with public authorities, and they also understand that it's gonna be difficult for them to do all the work needed alone. As I said, once we have this, the idea is to develop national dialogue panels with in-person meetings with stakeholders, ministers, everybody, workshops. We want to test and refine the National Buildings Observatory archetype dataset, the prototype, you can call it as you want. But then, yes, the idea is to refine it, test it, and at some point actually try to replicate it to other member states. It's a continuous feedback situation until the end of the process we will be improving it. So this is the overall idea. We want to make sure that policymakers and stakeholders are well, the needs of the ministers are also included. So not only about, let's say, the EPBD, maybe they have other priorities as well. So we want to incorporate them into the system. And yes, we want to also try to support them with decision making. And I forgot to mention that very, very quickly. So the idea is that we can also, with this national observatory, let's say, we can also develop automated reporting, but also monitoring dashboard, and finally data queries and analysis tools that we can directly, let's say, have some scenarios about the building stock and how the renovation rates, finance rates, and things like that. So directly supporting, for example, let's say, building renovation plans. So this is more or less the idea. It's not easy, to be honest. I think that we have promised a lot, but this is what we try to do. Let's see where it's gonna land. I remember yesterday you mentioned, for example, that we need something consistent. We need something that it can actually work at pan-European level. And I think this is what we try to do. We try to see different approaches, different sources, and make something that it works for everybody. But let's see. I think we are there. The most important, let's say, challenge for us is to see how member states will actually embrace it. In the beginning, there were some reluctance about it, but now they understand that what we explain to them what we try to do. I think they are more willing to do so. Yes, this is it more or less. We also think that clustering is important. There are many beautiful projects out there with amazing data sets, and we want to to take all this knowledge. That's why through the project and with the support of SINEA, most likely, we will create something similar with the live smart readiness indicator cluster. Maybe we'll try to create data for buildings, let's say, cluster, so that all different projects can contribute and finally make use of all the different, let's say, deliverables, data sets, and so on. Finally, we have a survey. Yes, I know. Thank you very much. We have a survey in case you want to contribute. Yes.
Yeah, so I think the use of this type of work is mainly to get data sets on stock level.
Yes, building stock level.
Building stock level, yeah. So now we go with
building level.
Yeah. The digital building logbooks. So this is where you find data and make it useful for actions on building level. So it's on building passports or renovation passports. The project I'm talking about is the DBL. It's a Horizon Europe project. We're already running for nearly 3 years now. But I also want to say something about a follow-up project that we could establish within the Netherlands, much more specific on renovation passports, which we don't have yet as a tool. But seeing all the examples in other countries, like also advising a government, like how could they facilitate in this, like the EPBD 4 is required. And that's this Reno. So I'm very brief in my overview because it would be too lengthy to go into all the details of the different logbooks, but we, as a demonstration, the call in the Horizon call was also about demonstrate existing tools to see how they work. So we have 5 different digital building logbooks, all a little bit different of nature, mostly focusing on decarbonisation strategies, also a little bit on circularity, but it's mostly on existing buildings to facilitate homeowners to take actions to renovate, actually renovation passports before they were called like that. 5 DBLs in 4 different countries and also diverse functionalities. So in the project in these countries, we defined for all of these DBLs some development goals also. So they made it further, but it was already existing tools and also the data on many buildings. Let's go to the next one. Goes a little bit slowly. So here you see a little bit the different functionalities. Here are the tools. There will be another slide where it's better, or it's also here. So we have Chimney, which is a tool in France, in the UK, and Clea is in France. CAPSA is the organization dealing with data collection in Germany. The Woningpas is the tool in Flanders, in Belgium. And we have synergies that's developing a tool for a circular approach. So the type of data is diverse also in complexity. The level of digitalization also goes. Okay. So here again are the different tools in the different countries. Well, I can very brief about it. So these were the actions that were developed during the project. So Clea and Chimney focused on users-centered automated renovation advice. So if you have the data, next step, of course, to make a good advice to the homeowners of what to do, and that being automated. CAPSA mainly focuses also on technologies to scan buildings easily and collect the data in an alternative way. And then for homeowners that have large stocks to develop their decarbonisation roadmaps. Woningpas, that is already existing, much more top-down from the government, providing all the data that there is for homeowners. So every homeowner in Flanders, in fact, can make use of it to start an action. And there they focused on the development of more, say, community-driven, so also on buildings, apartment buildings. Before it was mainly on individual homes, apartment buildings, or maybe neighborhood approaches. And synergies, that's the circularity approach. So that is the demo BLOG project. Maybe to conclude so far, I think it all worked out quite well. All these instruments within their given context, in their given markets, operate quite well, and there are potentials to scale it up. It's difficult, I think, to compare the countries and saying like this is a better approach and that doesn't work. So I think within their countries they will further develop on the way they started working, but they have more information over each other. And for other countries, that's one of the outputs that we want to develop, of course, is getting better insights like, well, these are the approaches. And it can be more public, governmental driven. That the government says, like, we want to facilitate this, we create platforms where you can have the data. Or in France, for instance, I think it works more like there is regulations that it has to be, but it's private organizations that develop it. And in the UK, a bit similar. So there are different approaches between public and private actions and developments and requirements. So what I said, like, because we know all of this, we now started, or made a proposal for a Dutch-oriented project for the national scientific funding organization in the Netherlands. It will run for 4 years, 5 years. It's called Renodat. That really starts with the idea, okay, there is this EPBD 4. We need to have something like a renovation passport, how to develop it. What is existing data? What it would be the need for all users, not only homeowners, building owners, but also maybe contractors that will have to make a contract based on data that is already collected, with the idea that you gain in efficiency if you once collect and store it and connect the data to the building. If there are further developments, you don't have to collect it again. You can just change it. If you sell a home, you can hand it over to someone else. But there are a lot of issues, of course, that we have to research. Societal, technical, organizational aspects. I click further to make it. I didn't realize that it was like building this slide. Oh, one back. Yeah, you see here the work packages, but it's just to show you that we want to focus on all these different aspects. It's not just only technical, collecting data and store it and see what data you need and where you need it for, but it's also very much on how to make it sure that it will be adopted by many partners. What are the wishes of all the stakeholders? How can you also give renovation advice that is very effective, and also a lot of ethical use aspects, like what would homeowners need, what does it help them, how do they think about public and private aspects, etc. And what is their business model? Yeah, if you say like government only, facilitate, say like we want to have it done in such a way, then it will also depend on market parties to develop things that are feasible. There should be need for from homeowners, but also suppliers to have something like this. Otherwise, it's not going to run. And then also we have that was a specific need of this call to focus on what it would bring to the labor market. In general, in the Netherlands, the idea is that there is too little technical labor capacity to do the whole energy renovation thing. So everything you can do in facilitating better collecting data, store it, and make it feasible for all purposes and for all users, that would be a big advantage. So far on this project, it's a large consortium of all type of organizations. It's public, private, users, and all type of users. So far, and then we go to the open BEP for Europe.
First of all,
There's the arrow down for the next slide.
Super.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there will be time for questions at some point or at the end?
At the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have time.
Yes, I'll 10 minutes only.
Yeah. So 2 times 5 minutes, and the alarm will ring. A pleasure to be here. I'm super happy to see that Sustainable Places continues to foster clustering of projects. You see there a big roll-up with almost 25 projects. Observe and OpenBed4U are the latest that have joined the cluster, and hopefully as we progress, maybe DemoBlog and also LegoFit would join. It started with 2 separate clusters, the EPC, Next Gen EPC, and SRI cluster, but these are just 2 policy instruments from the EPBD. We need to look it in a more holistic, so I think we are evolving now. We have joined these 2 clusters to keep the results salient for exploitation purposes, and all the projects are building upon the components of previous projects. I estimate or anticipate that likely this will become the building performance instruments cluster, so I think it only makes sense that we continue working together. I think EPBD now really, oops, the other way, yes, counterintuitive. EPBD now really creates a driver for renovation. We have the national building renovation plans. We have the maps for non-residential buildings and the progressive renovation trajectories for the residential stock. And these really builds an engine. So member states take ownership and responsibility. They have plans, but then this needs to be implemented in practice. And how can you do that without all the other policy instruments, EPC, SRI, renovation transport? And then you need to store all the data in a common environment so that you can keep track of this evolution. In OpenBEP for EU, we are focusing mainly on the calculation methodology. So this is another layer that's very horizontal. It's linked to data. It's usually we say indoor environmental quality is the invisible aspect of building performance. Well, actually for EPBD implementation, the calculation methodology is the invisible aspect. And many aspects in the calculation methodology have a big impact on how buildings are renovated, operated, and so on. I can just illustrate if you have a monthly method or an hourly method, that makes a big difference when you talk about grid flexibility, renewable integration, even building automation and control systems. So in OpenBEP for EU, we put the basis of a common assessment procedure that's holistic in a modular framework. And I have a few slides about OpenBEP for EU, and then a couple of slides from our colleagues at Q Technologies. I have on one of the slides, again, the team. And the colleagues at Q Technologies, they are the software developers within the team. And Christos is here in the room. So if you have further questions in the coffee break and lunch break, please attack him. He's the one knowing all the ins and outs of the programming and the coding of the software. And at EPB Center, we have the EPB experts that have developed the set of EPB standards that support the implementation, the common European framework, and it's becoming global. Most of these EN standards are going to be ISO in the next 5 to 10 years. So it will be the global building performance assessment methodology. And I'm happy to have also further colleagues from EUBAC. So if you have any questions about building automation and controls, how they are included in the calculation methodologies, we know in some countries the functionalities are not there. In some countries, even lighting system is not there. So here we really have a holistic approach with everything there. So Gus and Chloe are here. If you have further questions, just ask them. The core, as I said, is this open source calculation engine that can be then taken up by any software house in the member states, officially by the ministries. But of course, we tackle additional aspects. It's not only about the software. You see here on this slide that there are many cost effectiveness benefits. If you think of EPBD, you always have a recast every few years. There are changes, the standards need to be updated, and then each member state needs to further develop their own calculation engine. Well, if you would do this at EU level once, and then just use it in all the member states, you can only imagine the benefits in terms of cost and resources saved. I was saying about the modules, so the EPB standards, that's the best visual we have so far. I know it's not sexy at all. But there you have basically all the standards that are not descriptive. They are part of the calculation flow to assess building performance. And of course, buildings in reality, they have these elements that you see here on the left. And the most, I would say, challenging part, and the colleagues of Christos can confirm, was to define the high-level architecture. So that's my first 5 minutes. And then the second, because you need to have a module structure. We know that EPBD will continue to evolve. So with each revision, you will need to be able to just update the different components that have been touched. So you can see here on the left, this is basically the high-level calculation engine architecture. It goes from the input data, the pre-processing, then you have the energy needs, so just the building envelope for heating, cooling. And then you go to the more complex part, and we know this varies a lot in member states. The building envelope is more or less the same, but the building systems, when you go to HVAC, lighting, and so on, there you have many differences. And then we have the post-processing. So you see here in the mirror on the right, you have the standards, which are the basis, and then here you can see all the different components of the calculation engine that mirror the calculation flow the standards. We have 3 phases. We are already finished with the foundation stage. So the idea was to start simple, so that we have an end-to-end calculation, because there hasn't been yet a software implementation of the full set of standards. There have been bits and pieces. You also can find on GitHub certain elements, but not the full thing. So this is the challenging journey. We are together with QTech and the other colleagues in the project. There will be a second phase, the expansion stage. So if in the first stage you might have just a split unit for heating and cooling, in the second expansion stage you will have more diverse technical building systems. So what we have already at hand could easily be used for a residential setting, but then the more we develop could be used for any type of building. And the third, we will reach the product version 1. So that will be the first ever software implementation on the full set in an open source setting. And the timeline would be that somewhere by June next year, we will have product version 1. And the phase 2, where I think we will already have available on GitHub the expansion. So it's not just the first step, it's already expanded with more technical building systems and complexity. Will be ready somewhere in February, if I'm not mistaken, Christos, next year. So just follow us and we will keep you up to date. In terms of EPB Center, as I said, we under our umbrella, we have the EPB experts that have led the process of developing this common calculation methodology. Member states, they started with their own calculation methodologies. The Commission realized only after that in each country there is more affinity for certain approaches. You have in some countries more experts on ventilation, in other countries more experts on heating and cooling. And if you look at our geographical, of course, in the south more cooling, in the north more heating. So there is a lot of diversity in how building performance is assessed across the member states. So we have been supporting now for 1.5 years the colleagues at QTech with the ins and outs. Standardization is like research. It's not something that ends. It's always continuously further improved, and that's applicable also for the EPB standards. We have uncovered certain shortcomings. However, there is, with the EPBD recast, there is now ongoing a discussion to have a third mandate. So the Commission will put money again towards the Committee of European Standardization to update the components that were not there before in EPBD. So this was supposed to start this year. Nothing happened yet. So likely it will start next year. And everything that we are doing basically in Open Web for EU will serve as a learning lesson. We will learn many lessons, and then this could be then enhanced in the application of EPB standards in their further development. In addition to the calculation engine, member states, they struggle, and more so the colleagues at the European Commission in DG Energy, to compare between countries. Because how long is the meter? Of course, you can impose energy classes, but then if you don't take into account certain services in the building, I mean, class A in a country is completely different in another country. And I'm living in Brussels, in Belgium, and my house is at the border of Flanders and Brussels capital region. If we move it 200 meters, it will have a different class. So this is funny in a way, because building physics is globally the same. Well, politics, I mean, people making decisions. However, we can still, if we can have a transparent description of the national methodologies, we can, in a way, create a comparison tool. And this is what my colleagues at the EPB Center, the so-called EPB experts, are working on. So this is the gist of it. You might have national methods, but then you can get to a level where you could compare. So you try to bring it to the default European common method, and then you can have some cross-country comparison. And this is mostly relevant, of course, in a given country. If you just have one building there, you don't care. But there are many entities that have large portfolios of buildings across member states. And if you think of the manufacturers that need to comply with all these different calculation methodologies for their offering, this really makes everything slower. Of course, more complex, but slower. And we need to pace up the renovation. As I said, the mandate will come, and Open Web for You is really laying the groundwork. So by the time that work will start, we will hit the floor running. So I anticipate, in all honesty, that with the next revision, we might have an open source calculation engine that any member state could just take up. They don't need to reinvent anything anymore. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, I then pass the floor to Rafael, who will tell you more about renovation passports, another important policy instrument of. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Rafael Papa from IS, Integrated Environmental Solutions. So we are a climate tech company that delivers both the softwares and consultancy services for the decarbonisation of the built environment. So we are working on this SEI project. So it's a national project with the Sustainable and Energy Authority of Ireland. So we are prototyping the building renovation passport for the Irish context, and specifically for the non-commercial, for commercial buildings, non-residential buildings. So yes, so we are collaborating with.
And the other way.
I suggested slowly. Okay.
And it's responsible a bit slow.
So we are collaborating with the Irish Green Building Council and with CSTB. So the main objectives of this project was to develop the BRP methodology for commercial buildings for the Irish context, then to train the professionals to address also the digital storage framework for the efficient rollout of the BRP, and then also targeting the financial mechanisms to enable the rollout of the BRP. So as I was mentioning before, so one of our partners is CSTB. So the methodology of the BRP comes from the ASPE methodology developed by CSTB for non-residential buildings. So we started from their methodology. So basically following, let's say, their two core elements of the passport, so the building logbook and then the renovation map. And also more or less following the same steps. So interviews with the building owners, then of course the data collection and the site visit to collect all the information needed to build the first baseline model to assess the energy performance of the building, the current assessment of the building, and then let's say define with them, so a series of interviews to define with them different energy conservation measures. Then with our tools, we would model, simulate those scenarios to be able to then go to them with different energy and economic KPIs to then discuss with them which scenarios they would want to go for and which to prioritize to then define the actual say, timeline of the different steps of the renovation map. And then, yes, the dashboard that I'm going to show you after with all these elements. So, as I was mentioning, one of our steps is to assess the performance of the building. So we use our in-house tools, so the virtual environment to perform the building, the detailed assessment of the energy performance of the building. But I've put here also the ICD because this is a second tool that we have analyzed, not analyzed, how to say, discussed during our project. And that we decided to use because while we were talking with stakeholders, we saw that, for instance, for stakeholders with a large portfolio of buildings or with public entities, they were interested in before, let's say, going for the full, let's say, renovation passports, to have a sort of first preliminary analysis and assessment of the actual performance of their buildings, to identify from which building they should start from, because as you may know, Island has some targets to fulfill, so they need to, they committed to renovate at least 60% of their worst performing buildings by 2030. So they were interested in first having this preliminary analysis, so we decided to go for both. It is on. No, it's fine. So what we did in the project, I didn't mention this, it's a 2-year project and we're almost at its end. So almost all the work has been done and we're now drawing the conclusions and just finishing the trainings of what we did in the project. So we conducted different workshops, so user experience workshops to analyze the user experience journey of the different end users, to identify the sort of pain points, and then also to receive some feedbacks on what they would like to see within the BRP, how they would like to visualize it. So of course, in line with what should be included in the BRP by the EPBD, but also to still identify among the ones that should be included, which are the ones that they would like to prioritize and that they think should be included. I'm going to show you the results after. And then also on the second, in parallel, we also conducted some analysis on 2 scenarios of digital, let's say, options. So of a unified or interoperable architecture of and storage of the ERP. So, well, this is just an image, but the main results was just to show you, so that we organized this workshop with different stakeholders, so some building owners, some contractors, some BR assessors. BR are the building energy ratings, so the Irish EPCs. Well, we didn't have grant providers, but we asked them to act as grant providers to give us some inputs, policymakers or any other input. So as you can hear here, the main frustrations of the different stakeholders were that they cannot easily access the retrofit history of buildings, or that they had to, let's say, do more times their work because you have different platforms that they need to input the results of the data, or for different reasons. So they would want something that is more standardized and unified, or also so a central database, and again, so they have limited access to the VR data. Yes, this is more or less.
Can you finish in 5 minutes?
Yes. I have a lot of slides, but I'm going to go through really quickly.
I saw it.
Yes. So as I was mentioning before, we also just asked some questions, what the information they think should be included, how they would like to be visualized, etc. So I'm just going to show you then the results of this at the end. And then, as I was mentioning, these are just so. We asked them which scenarios they would prefer. So what would make so their work easier, what seemed more secure also from the sensitive data point of view, what scenario they would trust also more, and also from the cost point of view, which one they would think will cost more. And this, let's say, just a summary of the result that we then put in a frame. So for the 2 scenarios, so the unified and the interoperable systems. So let's say the main, feature of the different inputs. So from the data quality and consistency, would have also a higher data quality and consistency for the unified platform. an easier security and governance for the platform, but lower flexibility. And then, of course, lower long-term cost for the unified platform and more trust. And then, I'll just go forward quickly. So this is just the dashboards that we produced. So this is just the index. So here we have where we put the different information on the site assessment that have been conducted. Then here we have the validation of the model, so you can see all the information of the model that has been built, the baseline model. Here the different scenarios that have been identified for that building. Here we have, so I was mentioning before, the main KPIs, so the energy and the financial metrics for every single measure. So we can go through the single measure and see all the KPIs to support their decision making. Well, this is just the annual energy breakdown of the scenarios. And here, so once we've decided which scenarios to go with and how they want to prioritize them, we put them so in the intervention timeline. Then we have the decarbonization roadmap, where we can see from the carbon and energy point of view the reduction of the energy and the carbon along the different interventions. We also wanted to compare it with different targets. So here we have realistic targets on the CREM or the now I don't remember which one was it, the DBL target, but we also discussed about having the national targets for the public buildings. That's just for the carbon. And then the waterfall metrics, that is more or less the same. And we also discussed about including the whole life carbon assessment. This is still under discussion. And,
Okay, thank you. So now we go to the Lego fit with two presenters, I think.
Yes.
Because, okay, it's clear that you have to be careful with it at the time.
We'll take all the time is left.
Because you want to ask questions afterwards also, so it's in the wrong.
Morning, everyone. My name is Angela Raldi from Earthworm Solution, and with me today there will be Kalin Boji from LIST. Together we will present the LegoFit project, and we'll try to give you a brief overview on the path we are trying to follow, both from the DBL point of view and or towards a circularity aspect. Okay, that's me. Okay, let's go to the main objectives of the project. Well, LegoFit has the aim to design, implement, and validate, let's say, an overall approach to reach energy positive homes through smart and innovative solutions. We will test and validate many life cycle long design process by actually, as said, delivering a huge frame of interpearl solution that will be applied, for example, through several pilots. But some of the technologies are BIM modeling, post-occupancy evaluation, and also we have, all the tools and the partners in the project cover a wide range of topics. So we also have co-financing and circular and economy approaches. We are in the middle of the project development. We started in May 2023, and we are still proceeding within the overall development of each tool, technologies, and so on. Those are the partners. This gives you an overview on how big the consortium is. And the other one are the pilots in which the technologies will be applied. So we have two demo sites, the Spanish one and the Hungarian one, which are multifamily and multifamily residential building, basically. Then we have one demo site, which is in Turkey, that it's a student dormitory. And then we have two buildings, which are under the new construction typologies. Here we go to the main core of our presentation, but I mean, it was important to give you first a general overview on the project, since today we will talk about basically how we as R2M and how LIST contribute to the overall development of the project. So first, this is a brief overview, then we'll go to more into details in it. We as R2M support the overall project through developing BIM models using scan-to-BIM methodology, but also, which is actually the core topic of this workshop, we will create a standard BIM-related, digital building logbook. While on the other hand, LIST will contribute to the Lego Fit Building Circularity Passport Framework definition. They will gather data for dynamic circularity passport indicator calculation, also streamline MCI and LCA methodologies, demonstrating this approach on the Lego Fit file. And that's all. From my side, we will see later. And then, Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Angela. Hi, everyone. I'm Karen. I'm a researcher in LIST. Done my PhD in Cardiff University in BIM, ontology modeling, and crowd simulation. And then I've worked for 7 years in Luxembourg on about 8 European projects. I cover a lot of things. I've done digital twins. I've done, in the last 4 years or so, I'm drifting more towards circularity and life cycle assessment. There's a lot of things to say. Have a look at my publications if you're curious. We've got something on Lego Fit also on circularity and indicators. I guess I am a little bit surprised, I would say, but also thankful that I've seen the other projects and no one's covered sustainability so far aspects. Everyone's worked on energy. So that means that we have a lot of work here to do and to show you. And it's difficult to get data in the first presentation, like you heard. What you see here is one of the tools that we developed in LIST, digital deconstruction platform, which was developed, co-developed also with Sirdax, that's a partner in your project. And there we kind of touch a little bit on what is a material passport. There we have BIM, we have the scan, and so on. The platform is available, open source. You can install it if you have the tech-savvy capability on servers. And we want to move away a little bit with this and generate what we call a Lego Fit Building circularity passport, right? So we do have IES doing all the modeling for us, energy modeling, but we wanted to see what does it mean to do circularity indicators or sustainability indicators, which so far there are a lot of methodologies, but not everyone is touching on that. It is in reverse. Okay, so that's just some screenshots from them. This is an initial assessment we did last year, and this was published last year at a conference, trying to understand. There's a bunch of initiatives, there's a bunch of papers, there's certifications, right? So even a certification will give you now all sorts of indicators. They'll tell you how to get gold accreditation and platinum accreditation and so on. But these are scores. They're not based on scientific methodologies, just like you do, for example, in IES, they do physics-based modeling, right? You can't change physics. That's what Andre was saying earlier, that, physics is universal, just the same with the circularity indicators somehow. These are scientific calculation methodologies, just a life cycle assessment. And this is a little bit lost because people are kind of scoring because they put in their weighting methodologies and they say, okay, this is important and this isn't important. So we are trying to go from the bottom and say, okay, let's see what is the methodology, what does the methodology require as data inputs, and then where can we find this data and see what that gives us. So I just have a couple of slides just to show you 2 methodologies we looked into specifically. This is how we gather the data. Okay, so this is one way we try to standardize the way to gather data. We have 2 methodologies. One is called Material Circularity Indicator. I don't know if some of you heard about it. It was developed by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation some time ago, and now there's a lot of derivations of it. So some scientists are taking that into account, and they're adding in a few things into the methodology, and they have a spin-off of the methodology, if you like. I think this is also developed in the Madaster platform in Belgium, if you're aware of that. And then there's life cycle assessment. And life cycle assessment is something that's been standardized quite some time ago. And life cycle assessment could be for anything. It's for your phone, it's for your car, for your battery, right? And this has been going on for quite some time. And there's a lot of research also for buildings, and energy building, energy operation also is an input into it. So what we try to do is we try to understand the pilots, try to understand if we renovate them, what can we do? And if we do take an action, what does that mean in terms of circularity and life cycle assessment? And we have some indicators I'll show you in a second. The challenge was that we needed to find technologies on the market that give us data for our calculation methodologies, and that's not very transparent. Okay, so we had to go into EPDs where we had EPDs. Some of them had certain data, some of them didn't have the certain data that we needed to provide data for these two calculation methodologies. So we had our own data spreadsheets in Excel because we tried to make it easy, and then we put it into our code somehow to automate how the scenarios get constructed. Okay, let's see. Building level passport. Yes. An important aspect, and then I'll show you two diagrams, I believe. Let me just check this one. So, I think someone mentioned earlier that we have material, product level stuff, building level stuff, right? So this is the building circularity passport. So we also try to understand, what does it mean if I have all these building elements, materials, walls, windows? How do I aggregate them to deliver a more unified score or more global score for the building? And the question is that possible? Because there are methodologies that can assess a certain element or component. For example, the reusability potential, that was another partner we had in digital deconstruction, that was really only focused on, how an element can be removed from a building. So that was very contextually dependent if the element was connected to other elements. So, it's not really you cannot really aggregate it at the building level. Fortunately, these two methodologies can be aggregated because they are linear, kind of like building energy operation. You have sort of energy consumption for a certain space or part of the building, and the other energy consumption for the other part of the building. You add them up, and this is your total building energy consumption, right? So LCA and MCI are linear in the sense that these are materials, these are embedded energies in a way that you can add up and you can aggregate. And we try to find data by product and by EPDs, so that's more like product and material level. And these methodologies have calculations how to aggregate them. Another question really was, well, what do you show at the passport level? Because you have thousands of elements in a building, you have probably at least 30 or 40 material types and EPDs for each of these materials. And how do you convey this information in a meaningful way? Because as you start to aggregate it, you begin to lose sight of, well, is the circularity of the roof okay? Is the circularity of the tiles okay or not? And what you see here is what we call layers, building layers. So we split the building into, for example, the roofs, the external walls, the internal walls, the windows and doors. And what you see here, sometimes, sorry, it's in French, is the actual EPDs of the materials used. So in red, you have one material or component. There's another sort of confusion there. It's a material or component, but it depends. And then you have the layer where we add up multiple components, right? So that is an aggregated score. And the total score of all the kind of green layers, I'm not sure if you can see, here's another layer, external walls. Okay, so there's another aggregation calculation methodology. To add it up, the total one is in blue, right? And that is the score that we want to send to the digital building logbook or to the passport, for example. But am I supposed to show transparency and say, well, actually, this is the graph, and here's everything I use, here are my assumptions. Do I go to that level of detail? I don't know. And then for the, just to specify, for this, there is just one calculation for a baseline model, which is the Luxembourg pilot. That is a new building, and we had a lot of data on that. Okay, so when you construct a new building, you know the materials, you know what you're buying, you have EPDs, Doing this for all buildings is a totally different story because you don't have EPDs from buildings from the 60s, right? And this is the LCA part. And in the LCA, here we have 10 renovation scenarios with different types of products, active and passive technologies, where we insulate differently, where we use a heat pump or we use something else. And what you see here is the environmental footprint indicator methodology. That is an LCA methodology that the European Commission considers as the one that we should use. And it has 18 indicators. So the second indicator at the top is carbon. Okay, so this is what everyone likes to talk about. Carbon, that is emission into air. But there are other emissions. There's depletion of minerals and metals, there's depletion of forests, there's land use and so on, which you can see there. So what you see here actually is normalized results comparing the 10 scenarios. So red and 1 means quite bad or the worst scenario, whereas blue means the best scenario, all of these indicators. So how do you take a decision? You can apply like a Wetton methodology like you do for the SRI, for instance, right? And if you look at, let's say, scenario 8, it's all in blue, and you say this is the best scenario in terms of life cycle assessment. I'm not sure what it is in terms of material circularity in this because I haven't done it. I've only done it for the baseline, but I will see that there are scenarios 7 and 9 that are also very close, but you see that this one is here in red, soil index. That actually suggests that those scenarios, well, I know, so I will tell you what that means. They are based on wood, okay? So those are wood structures. So you can see that the carbon is very low overall during the 60 years lifetime period because using wood actually is more environmentally friendly than using concrete. But that is also telling me that I'm using a lot of deforestation, okay? So there is another methodology, PEF, that is trying to combine these scores into one unified score. And this is what we want to use for the building logbook and the material circularity passport aggregation as a final score. But looking into the details, it's quite difficult to understand what's happening in the building. So I think it would be useful, at least, to provide the building users with some sort of transparency where the assumptions come from, what the calculation means, and what sort of options they have when they renovate. I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Okay. Just want to say that I think in the next session in room 3 or 4, you can follow me. We will show you the building circularity passport in LegoFit and how we decided what sort of indicators we put in. You'll see it in more detail there. I have a colleague presenting it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karim.
How much time do you need?
2
minutes.
Okay, I'll manage. Basically, Kalim presented the overall work they are developing, but in parallel, we are developing also the DBL. So it's a joint collaboration. We need to understand, as you actually said, how to present those data. And that's one of the key point that we will develop further. So I'll take actually a few minutes to present you the DBL. Maybe I'll just skip this. I added to give you an overview on the context in which R2M is proceeding with to actually develop the LegoFit DBLs. But I'll skip and I'll go actually directly to our main proposition and development. I've tried to organize the main aspect of the DBL in 3 pillars. So the first one, which is basically the common repository for relevant building data. So how we are tackling this towards seeing a DBL as a data destination, supporting multiple type of data, such as also the input that will come from the overall works that they are doing towards the circularity and so on, but also integrating a 3D BIM model visualization. And we will also provide APIs to feed data into and retrieve data from the DBL. That's the key point. I mean, allows other tools to be integrated within the DBL. The second pillar is about facilitating informed decision and information sharing. So what we will actually work on is to have a clear definition on the stakeholders that we use from the I don't know what happened. I'll try to proceed it. I hope it works. Now maybe it's here. Okay. 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 Well, I was saying how we will facilitate informed decision making. Okay, we will work on defining stakeholder and preliminary use cases. So basically, up to now, we are working on the user interface, traceability role, task management, backend, data management to provide those preliminary use cases. So basically, uploading, updating, download, visualize data. But we will also work on having a DBL, which is secure, scalable, and interoperable with data governance framework. And then last but not least, the last pillar is about circularity. So from now on, knowing what are the main outputs from the material and circularity passport and all the circularity aspects, we will understand how we will have potential integration within the DBL. And this is our future development. So, of course, we have to understand what will be the data that will be retrieved to our DBL in the Lego Fit context. So this links to the ongoing discussion on the needs to adapt the DBL towards the circularity aspect. And we are also investigating, we will actually investigate the user perspective and furthermore actually exploring the geographical and regulatory context. It's a huge topic, so basically understanding also what is happening in other contexts could support us in the overall development, and this should be all from our side.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the last presentation. This is still 10 minutes, but please keep it short, so there's time for discussion. Maybe we can have shorter.
We go faster. I'm Marco Pietro Bon, and together with my colleague Ruben Alonso from Atom Solution. We present some findings from Smart 3Go, from Smart Square project. And we also saw this project in many presentations of these days, but in this presentation particularly we focus on the tool to calculate the SRI assessments and on some functionalities to export results from the tool to other workflows and other tools. Then we also see some case studies, or we see some real experience on buildings from smart squares and other related activities, particularly integrated three-dimensional scanning of building and SRI results, and integrating SRI and DBL. Fast. You know, Smart 3Go is the platform that allows the SRI calculation from Smart Square, and this provides typical functionalities to calculate the SRI assessment, and also some functionality to export the results. Of course, we have the results report as PDF, and also the chance to export some results and the inputs of the calculation as JSON files and other files of the results, mainly about like in Excel or CSV format. Then we can also export all the attachment and all the comments we bring in a calculation, like pictures, comments, notes, etc. And then in the tools, there is also the chance to record all the results and many building features. So we can build benchmarking and we can build a database of the results. We can do this at national level. For example, here in Italy, this is the number of assessments performed in Italy using this tool. This number is from some months ago. And yeah, we can find the summary of the results or the statistics on the overall SRI classes. And we can do this also for single users of the tool. So not at the national level, but for the single assessors. When we like to present this pilot in Smart Square. This is for Forgiatura, is a campus of 10 buildings for offices, but also bars and restaurants. Here is located in Milano. And here we applied a product that is an artificial intelligence-based product called Brainbox AI that optimizes the control of the HVAC systems using AI algorithms. We install the product. This is a pilot of Smart Square, but also a case on the market because we do this with one of our customers. And we assess the improvement of smart functionalities with Smart 3D Go, calculating the SRI before the application of Brainbox AI and after. Sorry. Here we present only the overall results. So we improve the SRI score from 25% to around 40%. So improving of one class of the SRI results. It can be an interesting case because in this campus we already have a very good BMS, like in many buildings here in Milano. And thanks to the artificial intelligence, we add some functionalities, mainly functionalities related to forecasting and information to occupants. And so these aspects improve these kind of functionalities in the SRI assessment. Now I give the floor to my technical colleague. The opposite.
So, well, the thing that, at some point we discovered that we have the capacity to do 3D immersive models with Matterport cameras, so we could generate realistic environments. We had a tool for doing SRI assessment. We had some assessors doing SRI assessment, and we thought, okay, let's do some magic in the middle to mix more. So the idea was to provide the clinicians, people, citizens in general, an environment which I mean they can relate with the data, with the environment that goes beyond the typical dashboards, the typical PDF reports. So information is not in a chat, information is in the real environment, in the office you know, in the museum you know, in the home, basically. So we did a tool that basically links the results of Smart 3D Go with the Matterport 3D immersive models. Allows us to have some tasks in specific elements of the real environment. It's a navigable environment. You can go through the different rooms of the building. This is our office, and in each of the elements you have information about the SRI assessment. Also, each of the tags has a direct link to the charts, to the dashboards, in case you can go directly to this information. So basically, once we have that, we thought, okay, now we have the information, we have the results of SRI, so let's try to also link with the DBL. Let's upload this data to the DBL. So inside the Smart Square, we developed a module in the DBL that allows us to upload the information coming from Smart Ready Go to the digital building logbook. So also the DBL has some traceability of Smart Readiness Indicator, has the possibility to extract this information and allow the user to get this data. And that's all. Thank you.
So, very nice within the time, at least the presentations. But we also want to have the floor open for some questions. I don't know. So, yeah, all of the presenters can be asked to for you if you have questions. I know that you indicated that you had a question.
I wanted to ask you if the project in the Netherlands,
Yes.
was it accepted or?
Yes, we have started. Yeah. Yes.
A couple of questions. One goes to Andre about this kernel. I was wondering, this is amazing. Let's see, how then be implemented. I wanted to ask if any member state is already, let's say, on board. Because I remember 15 years ago, I was in the ministry in Greece, and we used a similar, let's say, horizon. I don't know, it was a EU funded project called EPA or something. They tried to do
Intelligent Energy Europe, maybe.
Most likely, yes. And yes, we applied this one. At the end, it wasn't so easy. The idea was to use this kernel, the engine behind this project, and then to change many things to adjust it to the Greek, let's say, environment. So the question is how easy it will be for member states to actually apply it in the national context.
Yeah, well, in terms of being a straightforward process, it will be super easy. The situation we have now, in particular, Open Debt for EU calculation engine development timeline, is that member states need to update their calculation methodology by May next year. And we will have the version 1 in June. We have been interacting with the member states, and their main feedback has been that this is very good. So the reaction was positive. However, they said we have our own internal processes and timeline. So what we want to do, and this is something we started, is we want to validate with the Open Web for You calculation engine, the calculation engines we are updating at national level. So this is already, I would say, a leap. This wasn't there before. Of course, any member state, if in May they are not ready next year, they wait until June and they see, Open Web for You is better than what we managed to do, they can, of course, just take it. It will be open source. It will be an EU-funded outcome. But then, yeah, it's always a political choice, so we cannot anticipate.
Political, but maybe also cultural. Like there will be internal organizations that have to give their input. I think it's very traditional and conservative.
If I may say, if you think about it, you are a policy officer, in a national, let's say, government, and you have to do something about it because, May 2026, you have to do it. So either you do it yourself in-house, in a way, you outsource it most likely, or you try to build something on, let's say, a project. But you have to invest. This is why I'm asking already. It's not gonna be that okay. we wait until June, and then in June we decide. They need to do some work already before. It's, you know, they have to deal with that. And that requires a little bit of time.
If I may, Konstantinos Mamis from Key Technologies. It's easily adaptable again from other EU states because it's based on ISO standards. So it incorporates many ISO standards. So it's easily adoptable by other states.
Yes.
It has the modular approach, so any particular module, if a member state doesn't want to use the European method or the common ISO method, they plug it out and they plug in their own method. So that's why we have a long-term perspective with this development. And another thing we are doing in OpenWeb for You, we are providing also technical support to member states. So with the member states we have interacted, they said we want to use the whole tool as a validation. But then all the steps we have gone through with our colleagues at the Q Technologies to code all these different equations and have, you know, the EPB standards have, each standard has an input and output, that output goes as input to another standard. So this calculation flow now is very robust and clear, and they were going through similar processes that we went, and we already had the solution. So that's something we somehow try to do on the fly, because they need to comply with the deadline of EPBD. That's why I was saying when I ended my presentation that realistically, I think this would really become the thing with the next revision of the EPBD.
February.
No, the next, I mean, 5 years from now.
Okay. Yeah, you have another question?
For
Helene.
yes, you mentioned two methodologies, I think LCA and the circular
MCI.
NCI. There is another one, I think mentioned in the EPBD, the global warming potential.
That is one indicator of the LCA methodology.
Okay, so it somehow
And
include.
this is.
Okay.
What's the renovation passport?
In my words,
Yes.
I think what is a renovation passport? I think it's a digital tool with data of buildings that can function over lifespan of buildings and makes it possible to renovate up to 2050 energy neutral standards. So
Is it a plan? Is it a plan? Is it per building?
sorry?
Is it per building?
Per building, yeah. I think it should function individually.
Should it function like an EPC? Or like an
More or less,
SLI?
yeah. An EPC, it starts with an EPC, but then, yeah, function over a longer time. And it's not just a index or a label. It is the data stored with the building. It's my interpretation.
How is it different from a DBL?
DBL, I think it's a broader scope. Renovation passport is really targeting in decarbonisation pathway to nearly zero energy, while DBL I think can have various forms and broader. So the renovation passport not necessarily has to include the material impact. But a DBL could probably have it. I think it's a broader. You want to add?
Yeah, no. In fact, I wanted to ask you about last week. I was talking with some people from List, and basically discussion was about that the DBL looks like we are losing a little bit the traction that we have in the DBL. So I came to the traction, the focus that the European Commission was putting in the DBL. Now I came to this meeting, and the first thing I saw is that you, that were one of the references on the DBL in the last 4 years, have switched to the renovation passport. So, yeah, I mean.
Well, I told you about the follow-up project that we have developed. But in fact, the examples in the demo vlog are mostly have this idea of a renovation passport, because it focuses on that functionality. But it doesn't mean that the digital building logbook only has to deal with such a function. I think the DBL is a broader scope. Now I wanted to go to these first slides that I had. maybe closely there. No, this one. Yeah, so this is sketching more or less the picture, and the digital building logbook here is in the center, and it can get, so here it goes to digital twins, management systems, etc. And there it goes, building passports, renovation passport, could have material aspects, LCA. These are the, how you collect the data. Yeah, so I think when we mention digital building logbook, everybody will have a little bit different scope in his mind or her mind. Renovation passport is, I think, a little bit more specific because we can give, and it has a description in the EPD form.
It's a tool, I think renovation passport is a tool to facilitate the step-by-step renovation process. So it's, in my opinion, it's something like an EPC, but with more details. EPC only has like you can only find like some recommendations that we can use in it. But in the renovation passport, it is more detailed with budget, with costs, with it's like a small study on how to renovate it step by step until it becomes the mission of the.
Just I'm familiar with ontologies and I like definitions of words and stuff. I find it confusing to say that it's a renovation passport when it's a renovation plan at the end, right?
Plan.
The building passport to me is like an EPC. It's a stamp. It's like you have a passport to go to the airport. It's fixed data that was encoded and said, this is the passport. You have the right to pass or not.
Yeah,
So,
I agree, and we had these discussions also with other people, also with the British,
but it's important.
saying like the
people
word
read
passport is not
People read it and they're
accurate.
like, okay, this passport, that passport, I don't know, it becomes confusing. We need to be more precise. Huh?
A logbook, in fact, is maybe more an accurate
Logbook is
thing.
bigger, I understand. Put everything in
Call it
there.
a renovation logbook.
Digital product passport, that's another one. I mean, okay, that's different. That's from products. Yeah.
This is a passport.
That is also passport for the product.
But this is a passport.
Yes,
If
yes.
I can just add, to make it more logical, often people refer to it as a renovation roadmap.
There you go. I think that's maybe a better term.
Whereas logbook, if you say logbook, many people think of a repository. It's where you track changes and the current state and all that.
Yeah.
But
So in
terms
the
of
next
EPBD,
version of the EPBD, it should be.
EPBD is renovation passport. They even let go of B. It was BRP and now it's just RP, renovation passport. Like building services in EPBD are TBS, technical building systems. So there is a mismatch
Who
of
writes these?
policy language. Come to Brussels, I'll introduce you to them.
It's frustrating,
Yeah.
And that's something about you presented before, like in this pilot phase, in the I think it was in a meeting, and you said that before the AI, let's say, solutions. No, you said that with AI solutions, you managed to increase the SRI score by 1 class. But in terms of energy consumption or energy class, is anything related to that? Because to improve the SRI, it's always good. But in reality,
It's important question, and I miss to give this information. In reality, we save around 26% of electrical energy on the equipment we are controlling with Brainbox AI. So not on the total electricity energy demand, but basically 26% of saving of electricity on the HVAC part. In addition, we have also some other savings. regarding the thermal energy demand to the heat pumps that we can not quantify it because we don't have all the meters. So this is the figures of the real impact.
Okay. Final question, because we also like to have some coffee maybe. Coffee. No coffee?
If I may,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, because you gave our legislative overview that all of this is trying to address, you mentioned EPBD is the main focal point. I wanted to ask about if anybody is paying attention to Data Act and what it's doing in terms of the data that needs to be shared by connected devices, and that will impact sort of that all building systems data will have to be shared if the building user chooses so with third parties. So it allows for plugins and added layers, etc. So just ask me if anybody's
We're
tracking
supposed to, at least we're supposed to somehow.
More in this area.
Okay.
I hope that our data analysts will consider, at least we had it in the, we discussed about it in the proposal and also in the grant agreement.
Okay.
It helps, so we are aware of it. But if this is something that it is not in the EPBD world directly linked, and maybe that's why
They
we're
tried to
using
link it
information.
through Article 16 data exchange. That was the initial idea that it kind of couples with the Data Act, but eventually that just went to stopping building data.
Good point, good point.
Is it under observe that you're doing it, or okay?
I think we have to conclude the session. I think it was insightful to see all these different perspectives on digital building logbooks, renovation roadmaps, tools, passport, and also smart readiness indicators, information, and the LCA material impact. So I think it will take some time before we all speak the same language. We do it in English, but within this, I think the meaning of words in this spectrum are still quite diverse. Also, the perspective where you collect the data for, like the observe on building stocks, is also a bit different, quite different maybe than when you want to take action in a building. So it's really a commercial building or individual home. That's all very diverse. But I think, if we continue with all these projects and next year we'll try to make a new insight in how we see these developments. I think it's useful. Thank you all.